Hi everyone, this is a little bit of a nostalgic post. I'm sitting here in my car looking at a park, taking a trip down memory lane. Here's the park. I'm in a town that I never thought I'd step foot in again, and I'm just reflecting on how far I've come and how funny life can be. Well, some of you might not know, but my journey to where I've been here now with Evolve and my online institute has been a really fast one, but I certainly, it had very humble beginnings. And in January 2013, my husband and myself, our 2.5-year-old son and our 9-month-old daughter were living in Canada. We've been there for a couple of years. We'd been trying to get ahead. My husband had been trying to get an apprenticeship for about 18 months without success. He was working for minimum wage, roofing in the snow in Canada, and I was home with 2 babies doing part-time crystal jewelry making, and I think between us we were bringing home maybe $450 a week or something like that. And after a couple of years of that, we decided that things just weren't coming together for us in the way that we hoped while we were in Canada, and we'd moved back to Australia. So in the time we were in Canada, we'd managed to save I think it was $5,000 or $6,000, and it was all our savings combined. So we took that money with no job prospects, no house, no security, and moved to Gladstone in Australia, which is a mining boom or bust town kind of in the middle of nowhere in Queensland in Australia. My mum happened to be here at that time, so we moved in under her house and lived in a tent for almost 2 months. So of our $6,000 that we brought with us, we used $4,000 to buy a car. Being a mining town, a boom or bust mining town, a lot of things were quite expensive, and $4,000 was about as cheap as it got to buy a car at that time. So we bought an old Camry, which died 8 months later, and we're living in a tent. Now, keeping in mind, we left sub 10, sub 15 degrees Celsius snowy Canada to move to 38, 39, 40 degrees Celsius middle of summer Australian outback kind of weather with 2 babies. And we were living in a tent, no idea if and when my husband would get work. We'd spent our $6,000 on a car that was a piece of crap. And he managed to get my husband a little bit of casual work here and there, really menial work in full high-vis, long-sleeve clothing with helmet, boots in 40 degrees Celsius weather. And we did that for almost 2 months, just not knowing how life was going to turn out for us, hoping desperately every day we'd receive that call to find out he'd found full-time work. My son who was just older than 2.5 at the time and who has ADHD, was probably at one of his most difficult stages, and my days were spent in the heat and the floods and the torrential rain downstairs under the house in a tent, keeping him out of mischief and keeping his hands off my mum's house with the fear that he would break and anything that he touched with, because he was very rough. And because we had changed continents, there was a lot of crying from our 9-month-old daughter as her sleep cycle was completely turned inside out and upside down. And this little park that I just showed you was my 1 to 2 hours of sanity every day. Everyone at the house, my mum, my stepdad, was working through the days, and because my son was so destructive at that time, I couldn't spend time inside the house. So we had to spend our days outside, and obviously life in the tent became very mundane and depressing. So I used to walk them down to the park 100 meters down the road and sit there and ponder our life at this point. And there were a lot of tears that I shed at this park over those couple of months, as we just hoped and waited and trusted that somehow everything was going to work out for us. And we did eventually get that call that my husband got a full-time job. But in order for us to put down bond on a rental property and for us to get furniture to furnish the house with, and wait for the 1 month until he got his first paycheck, it meant that we had to get ourselves into $5,000 debt and max out our only credit card that we had just to set ourselves up. So yeah, exactly 7 years ago from today, we were thousands of dollars in debt, living in a tent, no job prospects, and completely uncertain about our future with 2 young children, one of whom was extremely challenging. And here we are now. So I've just stopped here and I'm reflecting on how far we've come in that time, and how when you put your faith in the universe puts its faith in you. So it was a few short years later that I found myself the owner of an international global healing institute. We were still renting in that time, but we were renting nice homes. A couple of years later, we bought our own beautiful home in the Sunshine Coast, which was one of the most beautiful parts of Australia. We left Gladstone, and we now own this beautiful home on the border of a rainforest. I have several people working for me. I've had over 10, I think I've got something like 13 or 14,000 people now around the world have downloaded my courses. I've presented at Australia's biggest wellness expo. I'm getting all emotional. And it's just, you know, always have faith in yourself. Always hold your vision. Always hold your vision high and be true to that. And when you trust yourself, the universe will trust you. And the only person that places limitations on you as a human being is you. No one else can place those limitations on yourself. And you just don't know what's around the corner. You just don't know what life holds in store for you. My business, like a few years ago, I would never have dreamed that I'd be turning over, you know, multiple 6 figures every year. How far we've come from the tent. So please don't ever lose faith. Follow your dream. Do what your heart is calling you to do, and always have faith in yourself.